To the Allied Republics. The Allied Republics struggled against the administrative committees of the Directory and the agents of the military administration who disputed the resources. They seconded powerfully the efforts of our warriors. A new republic arose upon the ruins of the Neapolitan throne. It took the name of Parthenopean. As for Piedmont, the provisionary government, instead of proclaiming its nominal independence, demanded of its own accord to be united with France. They proclaimed everywhere that the demand had been secretly ordered by our generals, but that order was not necessary. Why should not a little neighboring people have desired to be incorporated with the great republic? Our decrees of union were not incomplete like those of Ireland. They despoiled no one, and they rendered the people equal in every respect with those of Paris. It was by such a decree that Corsica had passed from the state of a conquered island to that of a French department, and the sincerity of that incorporation had effaced all bitter recollections of the conquest. Turin desired with the perfect confidence a union which unfortunately destroyed all hope of Italian independence. For what is Italy without the Alps? 3. The armies, a very unfortunate choice, is signalized this month as the first of our reverses. The Minister of War, Scherer, was named General-in-Chief of the Army of Italy during his ministry. Scherer had repressed with firmness the abuses of the administration of our armies. The military had an antipathy against him. The Directory, seduced by his fame, had the folly to prefer him to Moreau, whom they had not pardoned for having waited for the arrestation of Pichegru before he denounced his correspondence with foreigners. Scherer, notwithstanding his age, departed from Milan for the interior. The troubles of Belgium, having been severely repressed, allowed us to declare that Brussels was no longer in a state of siege. On the 21st of January, we again gave the world the sad spectacle of a great civilized nation celebrating the regicide by an impious festival. The preceding year, Napoleon had taken advantage of the pretext of his not being in service to keep out of the way of that anniversary. They could not persuade him to appear except confounded amid the other members of the Institute. That year, several members of the two councils did not appear at those funeral assemblies. The brothers of Napoleon were not seen among them. They informed us a few days before or after that they had celebrated at the Tower of London a festival equally moral. We were told that upon the report that Napoleon had been assassinated, the cannons of the Tower had proclaimed the hideous approbation of the English minister. We would not believe it. The most brilliant discussion of the legislative body took place upon the tax upon salt, a tax that had been several times rejected, and that the Directory thought proper to propose again as the only means of filling up the deficiency of the last year. In the two councils, a great part of the sittings were sacrificed to that question. I went no more to the Directory, but I was invited with a great deal of earnestness to go there. I had contributed to cause the refusal of that tax, and I was known to be a decided adversary against taxes upon objects of the first necessity. They endeavored to obtain my consent or my neutrality. I should have yielded if I had been convinced of the deficit or of the declared determination to combat the project without mercy. I was provoked at the stubbornness of the authors of the project, and I inscribed myself among the opposing orators, and whether it was with our colleagues of the 500 or with their friends in the Council of Ancients, I neglected nothing to render useless all the efforts of the government. They accused me of violence, and that imputation was just, but my violence held to a profound conviction. Did I still completely feel? I could never understand how they could possibly attempt to tax those objects that are indispensable for the subsistence of the poor, and in the midst of the lights of our economists. My mind has always remained a rebel to the science of indirect taxes upon things of the first necessity. Nothing appeared to me to invalidate the evidence of what Rousseau observes in a letter to Alembert The taxes upon corn, upon salt, beneath an appearance of justice, contain the most crying injustice, as he who has little pays a great deal, and who has a great deal pays but little. I pronounce the following discourse at the sitting of the 13th Pluvios. Representatives of the people, we are discussing the means to complete the 600 millions of revenue necessary for the expenses of the year 7. Each of us in that important discussion seeks the truth with sincerity and free from all personal consideration. To complete that deficiency, they announced to us projects of economy and amelioration and proposed to us for the 4th time a tax upon salt, discussing for the first time a question upon the finances. My inexperience ought to intimidate me, but there are principles engraven upon the heart which it suffices to follow, not to be misguided. The observations which I am about to submit to you are drawn from the source of those principles which all the doctrines and all the committees cannot destroy. I have acquired in the first place what was in fact a deficit of the last year. I then examined the means which they offer you to supply it, and I have read attentively and compared with your political system all that they discussed and printed for several months past upon the utility of taxing objects of the first necessity, notwithstanding the readiness with which I undertook that examination. The sum of the deficiency appears to me to be very uncertain, and the principles adopted by the Commission of Finances appear to me to be contrary to the spirit of the Constitution, illegal and against the rights of poorer classes, little favorable to the public treasure, and of the present year, and advantageous only to the speculators. What is the amount of the deficiency? Several contradictory opinions have been presented. Tired of that contradiction, you have endeavored to make your 3 commissions of direct and indirect taxes, as well as those of the finances, united in one alone, to make you a report in the sitting of the 24th Vendimiar, our colleague, this Stram, in the name of the 3 commissions, formally declared that in procuring to the Treasury the re-entry of the 55 millions, you would complete the receipts and would assure you the payment of all the ordinary and extraordinary expenses of the year 7 to effect that re-entry. The reporter proposes to you the tax upon the gates, windows, and chimneys, and also upon the horses, carriages, and servants. This your 3 commissions have valued altogether at 45 millions. There remains then only 10 millions, while awaiting at least said sum from the rectification of the customs and the right upon the fabrication of paper. Thus we have all thought to arrive at the end of that painful career. I have placed before you the proper terms of your 3 commissions.